I'm Vineeth. I grew up in California. I went to Stanford for undergrad and then went to Columbia for med school. And then I'm here as an R1 at Penn. I have like a lot of interest in kind of the combination of computer science and like radiology. And it's kind of something like you could say it's very unoriginal because my mom's actually a doctor and my dad's a computer engineer. So actually I grew up with kind of being at the intersection of the two for kind of a while, and like had always heard conversations about like mom who absolutely hates the EMR system, and then my dad being like, oh, why don't doctors do this? Like why don't they just use like computers to do that? But it like wasn't necessarily kind of always the plan. They were kind of like two separate spheres of my life. Like computer science, like I found kind of in high school, I liked robotics. Like I like Legos a lot. I found myself on like a Lego robotics team, and then just had to learn how to program to do that. And then realized that was just like kind of like this hobby that I wanted to do. And then medicine like kind of was like the job that I always wanted to do, just because like it's really boring, like going to your dad's work as a computer engineer and watch him like work on a computer all day. Whereas like seeing what my mom did was a lot more exciting. So like at one point it was just a hobby, and then I found like you could actually fuse them into a career, and like that kind of pushed me into radiology and interventional radiology. So first off, entire like radiology in general, I was actually very against radiology, like pretty much all of my med school, because I think part of it was like a reaction to like everyone would just pigeonhole me, like, oh, like you say computer science, you should be a radiologist. Like, so it's like every single person I met would tell me that, and just like as a knee-jerk reaction, I'd just like, no, I don't want to do this. Like people had told me even about IR, like so my response would be like, look, I just left computer science. Like, why would I go and do a job where I'm just sitting behind a desk all the time, right? Like. And then they're like, oh, you should look into IR. And like, I was already just so turned off that I didn't even like look into like IR, even though like they were actually like, it's what I ended up deciding to do. And it actually wasn't until my clinical year. Like I was jumping between hospitalist, then psychiatry, then neuro. And like on my surgery rotation, which like they asked me what I wanted to do, and I said not surgery on my first day. I actually really liked it. I loved surgery. I loved the way they thought. It like really spoke to my sensibilities as an engineer. Like it was like all pipes and tubes, blockages here. It just all made sense. And like I didn't really like open surgery. That wasn't what I liked, but the way they thought about problems just felt very intuitive to me, very different than a lot of other parts of medicine. And actually my intern that I was working with, he was actually a prelim going into IR. And so I was like talking to him about like how surprised I was to enjoy this, but how I didn't really like open surgery, so I didn't think it was like the right choice for me. And he was like, you should really look into IR. And this time it felt different because it wasn't some guy just being, oh, you're computer science, you should do radiology. It was like, oh, like something that was actually more core about like how I interacted with the field. He was like listening to that and then suggesting it. And after that, I was like, okay, yeah, like let me think about it. And then I found the field, looked a little bit more into it. And then really fell in love. Like I think like one of the big key points is like I was listening to a podcast, not this one, but and they asked like, oh, like what's like the number one thing like you like number one quality for an interventional radiologist, and it was creativity. And like I had just never heard any other medical specialty say that. Like maybe like I'm sure it's important for many medical specialties, but I've never heard someone say that's the number one thing. And like as someone who like really does identify themselves as like an engineer, like it's something I felt like I was missing in medicine. So like from there, then it like was like, oh, like what you can do for patients in a minimally invasive way, like that. Like I came into medicine to like help people, and to be able to do that in a way that's like minimally invasive and like gets them more time at home, like doing what they love. Like that's like, I mean, no brainer at that point.
So, initially, of course, I was a surgical PA, so I'm going to medical school to be a surgeon. There's really no question in my mind. Yeah, and I was good at being a surgical PA too. I loved the OR, and I love anatomy. And really kind of everybody expected that of me. I expected that of myself. But I knew the lifestyle of an attending. And I knew the lifestyle of what a non-academic attending was like, because I worked in a nonprofit hospital, and without residents, and these attendings worked really, really hard. I worked with someone who was in his late 70s who was still taking night call. That's nuts. And so when I went into medical school, I thought, okay, that's just the general surgeons. The general surgeons were really the ones that got crapped on the most. Like, so I'm not going to do general surgery. And so throughout medical school, I really investigated a lot of these surgical specialties. I thought that orthopedics might be a really good fit. They're kind of a bro-y specialty, and I'm from construction, and I'm an athlete. And so kind of I fit the prototypical, like, bro-y chick that can hang with the guys. And as soon as I was with ortho, it was kind of like back to construction again. Like, I thought I would like it, but then as soon as I got there, I did not like it. And so it wasn't a good fit. Then I thought, okay, well, I did CT, didn't like CT, did hepatobiliary, did surgical oncology, now ortho, plastics. Love the soft tissues. The surgeries there are amazing. You get to do all of these flaps. I like the soft tissue part of general surgery the most. I like how delicate it was, how precise it was. And with plastic surgery, I really liked that there was a lot of collaboration. When you operate on the face, you can work with ENT guys, you can work with the OMF guys. When you can go into hand, so then you're working with ortho. You can work with neuro a lot of times when you're doing these like delicate operations with like nerves. You can work with vascular when you're doing a lot of like pedicle flaps. And so then I spent a lot of time with plastics and was pretty set on going into it. But that really wasn't a good fit personality-wise either. Now, my roommate in college was also going into plastics, and she and I got along very, very well. And at the last minute, she bailed for radiology. And one of my research projects in medical school was this case report, and it had a lot of imaging. And so I distinctly remember calling up the radiology department, and they were so helpful, and they were so nice. And I ended up talking to the clinical coordinator or clinical director for medical students, and I didn't even know she was attending or so high up. And she was just really encouraging, like, oh, well, God, if you like this, why don't you just do a rotation with radiology? And I must have talked to her for 25 minutes. And she just really left this lasting impression. As soon as I got off the phone, I had a 2-hour conversation about radiology with my roommate. And then it was like, this could be something. I think I could like this a lot. And then I called up my buddies in private practice that I worked with 4 years prior, who, looking back, I spent more time hanging out with the radiology department at my old hospital than I ever did with the surgery department. I mean, I would go to their baby showers. I was on their mountain biking team. I would go grab beers with them after work. I'm good friends with a whole bunch of IR techs. And it was like, well, the personality kind of fits. Like, I'm already hanging out with the radiology group more. And so one of these radiology guys was like, Audrey, why don't you just call up one of my private practice plastics friends and talk to him. See what attending life is like before you make this decision. And so you're really well informed. Boy, I couldn't imagine going into that now after that conversation. It kind of really sealed the deal. This individual told me that when he tried to open up a private practice place in Scottsdale, Arizona, the local plastic surgeon invited him and his wife out to dinner and said, basically, you're not welcome in this town, and I'm going to do everything I can to shut you down. And that includes bad reviews online, that includes bad press, whatever it is. And then he tells me that he tried opening up a plastic surgery department. He left in Colorado Springs. Well, he couldn't get hospital privileges there because the local plastic surgeons were on the hospital board and wouldn't give him hospital privileges. So now he goes to Denver. And you can't really trust anybody to take call for you while you're on vacation because they could take your clients. So every single family vacation, he has left prematurely because he has had a patient emergency. And that was not the life I wanted. He also said that I didn't have to choose that life. I could go into academics, or I could work part-time. But then if you're not operating 40 hours a week every single week, you're going to be a bad surgeon. And that was non-negotiable for me. Patients deserve better than that. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to be a surgeon, it's going to be full-time. I don't really want to do private practice. And do I really want to be an academic plastic surgeon doing cases that are maybe 18 hours long when I'm in my 40s and 50s and 60s? And so I kind of thought, why am I doing this? And then it was like radiology was all of the things that I liked about surgery with all of the things that I hated. Like, it was just great. I mean, the anatomy was there, the lifestyle was there. I loved the physics of it, and it was just such an exciting field. So it was like a no-brainer.
I'm one of the few West Coasters, it seems like, at Penn. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I was there pretty much all the way up until undergrad. I went to Loyola Marymount University, where I majored in biology and minored in theater. And after graduating, I did a little bit of acting in LA. I was kind of on the fence about medicine, but knew I really liked acting. So I continued pursuing that and was even on a few episodes of Grey's Anatomy as an extra, wow, which is a pretty cool experience. But ultimately, I decided medicine was the way to go for me. And I went to graduate school at Drexel University. And then shortly after that, I went to University of Nevada, Las Vegas for medical school. And my wife and I both got in there. It was the only program that we both got into for medical school. And it worked out beautifully. They gave the first class, which I was part of, full ride scholarships. So we saved a lot of money by going there. And we were looking at programs for residency. And because we had both went to Drexel for graduate school, we knew Philly was a familiar area. We knew what we're getting ourselves into, and man, I wish the weather was as good as LA. Unfortunately, it's not.
I wish the same.
Yeah, but yeah, we knew what we were getting ourselves into. So Penn was a program that really stood out, had a lot to offer for both of us. I was applying radiology, she was applying anesthesiology. And yeah, we interviewed at a lot of programs because it was virtual and it was a new format with the virtual interviews because of the COVID pandemic. But ultimately, we were both very happy with our choice, and couples matched at Penn.